Welcome to the Q3 AWS Startup Showcase. I'm Lisa Martin. We're going to be talking about new breakthroughs in DevOps, data analytics, and cloud management tools with WhiteSource software. This is for the DevOps track. I'm excited to welcome Susan StClair, Director of Product at WhiteSource Software, to the program. Susan, it's great to see you.
Oh, very excited to be here, Lisa. Thank you.
We got a lot of stuff to talk about today, but ultimately the theme that Susan's going to talk to us about is winning developers' trust is key to scaling up open source security for the enterprise. We're going to unpack that. You talk about that winning that trust is key, shifting left won't work without developers' buy-in. Susan, help us understand this.
Yeah, sure. So I touch up on some of the topics we have later, but you look at the rate of applications being deployed fast that is, and you look at development teams of hundreds, and you have AppSec teams of 5 or 10, and they just can't do it all. So really you need to leverage everybody who's part of the application to really be able to make sure that you're developing and deploying and releasing a secure application. So that's the shifting left. Unfortunately, I think what's happened is because application security is overwhelmed, and because they're like, oh, we have all of these developer teams over here and it's their code and they should fix it, and they just kind of dumped application security on them, and the poor development teams are like, but that's not what I do. That I don't have any expertise in there. So if you really truly want shift left to work, you do need to build that buy-in. You do need to build the trust with your extended team, for lack of a better word, and really start to look at things that are important to them. So automated tools, making sure that they work with their tool sets and their processes, looking at automation, not just in terms of scanning, but also remediation. You just really need to start to work with them and think about application releases in a different mindset.
And your recommendation here is also to build that trust gradually and to let developers control the pace and the level of
Absolutely.
automation. Talk to me about why it's important to give the developers that control.
Yeah, sure. Again, I think nobody likes to be told what to do. I certainly don't. So tell me how to do my job. So I think because historically, application security and development have really been at odds. It has been somewhat of a confrontational relationship. So I think as you're starting to build that trust, you do need to go slow. Where does it make sense to add in an auto remediation solution like WhiteSource, right? Where does it make sense? We don't want to do it everywhere. We don't want to, overwhelm development teams with this. So really start to look, let them control the pace, build that trust, build that, this is a good thing for everybody. And again, I think, with tools like WhiteSource solution software, you can pick and choose. It's not an all or nothing. We're going full automation, full remediation, one-stop shopping. I mean, you can kind of control the pace as you start to build that trust between the various teams.
Is that a differentiator for WhiteSource, the ability for this auto remediation tool to let them control that?
Yeah, it definitely is. And I know it just rolls off the tongue, doesn't it? It just rolls
It
off the
really
tongue.
does.
um, Say it 10 times fast.
I'm
Yeah,
afraid to.
exactly, exactly. So no, it actually absolutely is a differentiator for us. And again, when we look at, looking at our customer base and enterprise, and we look at even, maybe smaller teams, that trust has really made us successful. And the key to that trust is really that controlling the pace with auto remediation and some of the other automation pieces to the solution.
And speaking of customers, you guys have 23% of the Fortune 100 as customers. Give me an example of one of your favorite customers that you think really shows the value that WhiteSource is giving to those developers by giving them that control.
Yeah, sure. So I feel like we're like the big company or bigger company that nobody has ever heard of outside of this space. Um, but yeah, if not naming names, but large financial customers, and really shifting application security, open source application to the hands of the development teams. So they've actually, again, small application team. They've really pushed it out to the development teams as part of like a repo integration for scanning, for ticket creation, for auto remediation, and that's really let them scale beyond like just one or two teams to thousands of repos, for example. So, I mean, that is, in my opinion, like a huge use case or a huge validation of, that this works. This isn't just somebody talking about how cool their software is, and it's not based in reality.
A stat that I read about WhiteSource software that I wanted to get your feedback on is that WhiteSource goes beyond traditional detection, providing dependency and trace analysis, and that this helps organizations eliminate up to 85% of security alerts. That's a big number. Talk to me about how you guys do that and the advantages that that delivers.
Yeah, sure. So I think like the one of the challenges with historically with open source solutions is that they scan and they get these results, and you could have hundreds and thousands of insecure libraries, and you're like, holy moly, where do I even start? It's just completely overwhelming. And then you dig into a little deeper, and again, starting to build that trust with development teams, and the development teams comes back to you and says, well, hey, guess what? Yeah, I know that that library is insecure, but I'm not using that part of that library. So it's really kind of a false positive. So what this dependency tracing does and how it helps with prioritization is it says, okay, we see this particular library, this vulnerable open source library, and it is in your execution path. We can see that you're using it. So then you're able to say, okay, I should definitely fix this because we're using it, or maybe not. Maybe again, it's part of my backlog. Yes, we should always keep up to date and be completely secure, but having that ability to prioritize where to start and having the alerts based on that, it really reduces the noise, and again, it builds the trust in between the teams.
So we talked from the beginning about shifting left isn't going to work without developers buy-in. The idea of using auto remediation tools to let developers control that pace, the AppSec folks, the dev folks. We
Hmm.
also have, for I believe it's the fifth consecutive year now, a huge gap in cybersecurity skills. I think I've seen some reports estimating that there needs to be another 3 million professionals in the next 5 years
Hmm.
to help fill that gap. At the same time, we're seeing the security landscape changing dramatically.
Hmm.
How, talk to me about how the cybersecurity skills gap is affecting developers, AppSec folks, and what you're seeing as a tool that can help remediate some of that.
Sure. Yeah, no, I mean, that is the challenge. And, I would even say that there seems to be the skills gap, on the development side too. Um, but I think that, in terms of some of the challenges with that, so you have to look at ways, how can we be smarter about things, right? So we don't have, people, large teams where they know everything about application security and open source security, and, that we can really rely on to drive remediation, but also to use these tools that all of us have bought, and that do different things that aren't correlated, but to kind of provide that glue. So where WhiteSource I think is trying to address this is, again, if I don't have the people and I don't have the skill sets, first of all, automation, right? So the more that we can automate, the better, but not just, again, automating on the scanning side. I think that's certainly a part of it. But again, looking, we can help development teams that are maybe not security experts at keeping them up to date and giving them, again, automatic remediation so they can fix things without having a really depth, that you would expect in a cybersecurity professional.
I'm sure they appreciate that, not having to have that depth, because there really isn't, in terms of developers, there isn't the time, right? Speed is always of the essence there.
Sure.
One of the things too that I know is there's a lot of tools being used. You mentioned that. How can white source software help the developers to better utilize some of the tools that they have, or not just be buying tools to check boxes?
Yeah, sure. So yeah, it's a sad fact, I think, within our industry, probably more than just ours. But really a lot of decisions, purchasing decisions are based on well, I need to scan because somebody told me to that I had to, and I'm going to check the box. I'm not really so interested in fixing anything. I just need to check that box. And I think historically, when it comes to tool selection, again, because application security is really focused on that check the box because they need to do that for a compliance or a governance reason, they really haven't taken into to heart the teams that would actually be using them and having to make the magic happen. So they would prioritize things that again, maybe app dev wouldn't. So again, does it work with my tools? As a developer, I live in my IDE, I live in my code repo, I live in my ticketing system. Security doesn't typically care anything about that. So I think, with WhiteSource, again, providing the tools that the AppSec team needs. So again, the compliance reports and the policies and all the stuff that we love. So providing, again, the way to easily fit into developer workflows, that's how we're helping to move beyond, okay, we're checking the box, but we do want to actually fix something and we want to move the target or along. So we're really, I think, helping address that need as well.
I know you guys did a DevSecOps Insights report recently.
Mm-hmm.
Unpack that a little bit with some of the key findings that have come out of that.
Yeah, no, that's great. So it's it's very interesting. So it, first of all, I think we in the industry we talk a lot about DevSecOps and security is part of this DevOps process and everything is good. But when you actually talk to people, I think two things. One, it's very much a work in progress, for absolutely, and a lot of that is, I think, part of the tooling. I think too, like what we found as part of this survey is that the developers are often, they feel forced to, okay, I'm shifting left, you're telling me I own security, but you're also telling me that I need to get this application out the door, right? I need this to
Right,
compete. So they're really being forced into hard choices of which one to prioritize, and that really comes down to a culture thing. What
right.
is more important to you, right? Being secure or being competitive, and how do you weigh that? So I thought that was actually very interesting. I think that we tend to give app dev teams a bad rap, but they're really doing the best they can. And again, they need clear guidance, and there needs to be a security culture, I think, for them to operate in.
Right. That's a really big one that you just hit on, that cultural impact. It's
Hmm.
hard to change. In the last 18 months, we've all been through so much change personally and professionally.
Hmm.
We've seen this massive acceleration in digital transformation, so probably more pressure on developers who need to be able to be productive from work from anywhere environments. But that cultural change
Hmm.
is really critical. I'm curious if you have some feedback from customers that have done it successfully or are in the process of doing it successfully that you can share.
Yeah, no, that's change is hard. No matter where it's at, absolutely. So I think like where we've seen like, the most successful of our customers around this specifically is it truly is, I think, both a top down and a bottom up approach. So from a top down, you can't just give lip service that application security is important. You can't just say, oh, again, from a compliance check the box point of view, we scan and we're looking and oh, look, we have these statistics. You have to really live it. And what I mean by that is when you're, developing new applications, it's just as important as the feature list. Security bugs are just as important as any other type of bugs, so again, it goes into the workflow of the application development teams, and you don't make them make these hard trade-offs all the time, between security and um, release. And then I think from the bottom up, again, you need to be where your teams are at. You can't ask them to go into another tool or another thing or another this and that. They have things to do. You have to be where they are, and you have to give targeted, actionable, not things that they have to go research, guidance, and automate as much as you can, again, both on the scanning as well as on the remediation side.
Meet them where they are and facilitate that automation. Susan, thank you so much for joining me today, talking about
My
how
pleasure.
WhiteSource software is helping that, and also for the challenge of saying auto remediation 10 times in a row fast. I might practice that later, but it's been
That'll
great
be my
talking to
homework.
you.
Likewise.
Exactly. Thank you so much for joining me. This
My
has been our
pleasure.
coverage. This has been our coverage of the AWS Startup Showcase, new breakthroughs in DevOps, data analytics, and cloud management tools. For Susan StClair, I'm Lisa Martin. Thanks for watching.